You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. And now it's time for our monthly book club book review with Lauren. Lauren, as always, it's great to have you back here in the studio.
Thank you for having me back, Daniel. Thank you very much.
Well, our book this month, a bit of a Halloween theme, is Frankenstein. I think we're going to start off by a bit of an introduction, I understand.
Yeah, so Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is a book that was written in 1818, making it almost 200 years old. It is a book that I'm sure most people are familiar with, even if they haven't read the book. I'm sure they know the general plot, but I'm going to go over the plot of the book because this is sort of like the original plot, and it's written in quite an interesting way. It's written from three narrative points of view. So it starts with the first narrator, who's a chap named Robert Walton, who is writing letters to his sister while he's away at sea. While he's away at sea in the north, he meets Victor Frankenstein, who's obviously the namesake of the novel, who then takes over the narrative of the story. So that would be the second point of narrative. Victor's story tells of how he created a monster from dead people's body parts. Very nice. Once he had created this monster, he is disgusted at himself and the creature that he's created, and he decides to leave and return home to Geneva. However, he gets a letter to say his younger brother's been murdered, and when he returns home, he discovers that a friend of the family's been wrongly accused of the murder and has been executed because of the crime that she did not commit. It then turns out that it was the monster that Frankenstein created, who is the murderer of his brother, and also sort of indirectly the lady who has been wrongly accused of murder. The monster then takes over the narrative. So this is the third point of narrative now, where he tells of how once Frankenstein had created him, he ran away because Frankenstein was disgusted at him. He came across a family who he lived in the sort of hovel next to them and kept an eye on them and helped them out without them knowing, because he was aware that he was horrible to look at, and he fell quite deeply in love with these family and cared so much for them. Then one of the father of the family is actually a blind chap, and he got chatting to him and everything was fine because he couldn't see what he looked like. And then one day the family come home and saw him and attacked him, so he ran away, and after being treated badly by two sets of humans, he decides that he hates all humankind, and in order to get revenge, he will go and seek out Frankenstein, his creator, and that's how he ends up killing his brother, later Frankenstein's wife, and then eventually Frankenstein comes. So it gets to the point in the story where Robert Walton, the first guy that was the narrator, meets up with Frankenstein, and then they sort of have this chat about it. So that's how the narrative comes back round, and unfortunately Frankenstein then dies of an illness, and Frankenstein's monster is mortified and so sad that his creator's died, and he actually says that he can die now that his creator's died. So it's a really sad story. It's also quite spooky, which is why I wanted to read it for this month. But yeah, the main theme throughout the book is just this horrible sadness, and everyone just sort of having a terrible look at how humankind treat people and things like that. So although very spooky and wonderful to read for this month, the main theme is horrible sadness.
I was going to say, it's quite nice to cover as well, because you always hear Frankenstein, I think, a lot, the kiddies' cartoons or the old-fashioned films, but the book isn't quite like that.
And it's sort of timeless in a way, because it has lasted that long. Like I said, it was written in 1818, so it's impressive that it's lasted this long. And like this time of year, there's always Frankenstein masks in the shops, and it's been created into so many films. And it's just it's a timeless sort of story. And it just goes to show how strong the story is, really, that it can last that long.
If people are looking to get into reading classic novels, is it a good place to start?
I would definitely say so. It was one of the first classic novels I read, and actually thought, oh, I understand this. Like, I didn't have to reread it. I didn't have to look up something on the internet to find out what had happened in a chapter, like I have done with other classic novels. So I'd definitely say it's a good place to start. As I said earlier, it was written in 1818, which makes it almost 200 years old. But I find it very readable and accessible. And as we were discussing earlier, it's a story that's sort of come through even to today, and it's so, like, in today's culture, and especially with Halloween being around, it's obviously a good story that it's travelled that far. Also, horror obviously sells. I think there's a lot of sort of classic novels written around that time that I'm going to go into a bit more detail about later, that have really made the transition into modern literature, and have had films made of them and all sorts. And I think that's why it would probably be a good place to start as well, because it's an interesting. It's not, although I do love other classic novels like Pride and Prejudice, etc. This is sort of something that I think everybody can enjoy, boys and girls, not to generalise or anything. And the narrative structure, as I said, it keeps it quite fresh. The fact that it flips between three narrators, Robert Walton, Victor Frankenstein and the monster, and sort of flips between them, it keeps the story quite fresh, and it's good to hear it from different perspectives. And I find it quite modern in that sense. Like, I haven't really read many classic novels where that happens in other classic novels, so that I find quite modern as well. So yeah, I definitely think that this is a really good place to start. And I've got a few other books that I'll go into a bit later on about other classics that are good to start with as well.
And at the moment we're joined with Lauren. It's all part of our regular monthly book club book review. Frankenstein is the book for this month. What other